Everybody here, this person here is having a Reiki session in person. Okay, so yeah, you can see. All right, so when I do a Reiki session, I always start at the crown and I utilize the divine light to push down through each of the portals, right? So if I'm working on somebody physically, I'm pushing down the divine essence through the crown, and then it gets to the third eye, and I push the light out of like a vortex, right? And so this allows me to see if that energy center, first I check the spinning disc in the center, see how that feels, and then I check to see how the energy pushes through this vortex. Once that feels clear, I go to the next one. So then I continue to push the energy down, and then we go here, we push the energy up, and then we go through here and do the same, right? So we're pushing the energy through each of these energy centers, which actually become portals, right? So these become vortexes. Now, simultaneously, whether I'm working on someone in the real, like in person, or doing a remote session, I'm always working on this holographic version of self, which is you or whoever I'm working on. But because it is a light body, because every version of self actually gets lighter in different bandwidths of energy. So we've got 3D here. This is the lowest vibrational version of self. And then we have another bandwidth of energy here, which goes up. We can call that 4D. And then we have another one here. We can call this 5D, right? And then we have up here our holographic body, which sits in the void. And so by the time we get to this version of self, it's a full hologram. And so I can actually see, like a grid that you can see through, it's like a grid body, essentially. And what happens, the drawing's actually going to get really messy. Is, as I'm working on these vortexes, are you guys there? Yeah?
Yeah, it's great.
That's right, that's okay. So I'm pushing energy into, say, the physical body of somebody, but in my mind's eye, I can also see what is happening here in the void. Okay, so we've got two different things happening at one time. When I'm actually in the void, though, there are two portals. Okay, so I'm going to push this energy here, and say I'm doing a remote session on someone, or an activation. Let's go to an activation. We're going to push that in. Same deal as if I was in person. Push that divine light through. And once we have to check to make sure if there's any blockages or distortions, I won't be able to get through. And so I have to clear out this energy. But once we are, oh, that's not it there. Once we're through the crown, we actually push the energy, that divine essence, through this here, that portal. Okay, and this portal is like goes into and attaches to the universal blueprint, which is out in the quantum. And then this portal that is attached to the same disk comes down through these different dimensions of self and actually runs through each of those dimensions of self. And the energy comes all the way down into Earth realm, into the physical body. Now, that energy won't be able to get pushed down into the physical body if there is distortions or anything here. And so part of my job when I'm doing the divine activations is firstly activating this side, because then we actually activate the divine template and have access to that universal field of energy. And then once those are all activated, we can then activate on Earth realm side, which is still from your the same energy center, but it actually just comes down here in another vortex. And I see this in your energy field. Now, each of us have different clair abilities based on your soul mastery. We have a natural ability to be telepathic. That is a universal language that's used in around the entire universe. And that in Earth realm is conveyed through the heart and mind coherence. So remembering again that our heart is a universal portal. And so when we activate our heart, we actually have access to the soul memories and to those telepathic abilities. You have other clair abilities. So whether that is through being able to sense things through touch, or just your knowing of things, visualize, smell, hear. There's all different ways that people will be able to understand what is in the blueprint. And so you have to use your senses and your intuition. You won't be able to hear the messages if you can't trust yourself and trust your intuition, because you will doubt what you are hearing and things will get jumbled. And so to be able to access the void and come up and be able to check in with yourself, we need to practice being able to just let go of your thoughts and trust in yourself and the instinctual knowing that you get when you're up here. And so for me, all the clairs are available because I'm activated with the universal blueprint, and my soul has different codes, like your soul will have different codes. And so I'm able to use a whole heap of clair abilities, and everyone will have different ones again. So when we have activated all those portals and the flow is then coming from that universal blueprint, which is again a mirror, okay? Everything is a mirror reflection. We then push it down. And so those energies that are coming through then create this gateway through those portals and allows you then to access that high vibrational version of itself in the physical realm. Okay, so you don't even necessarily have to know what associations or anything about the energy centers. If you are in tune and can trust yourself again and listen to your intuition, you can move through, you can have general knowledge of these energy centers, meaning you know where your crown is, your third eye, your throat, your heart, your solar plexus, sacral and root, and move through them and ask for the questions. Ask the question, what can I learn? What messages do you hold for me? And you can draw them down. Because each of you has had a divine blueprint activation, you have access to your highest self, your highest potential, your highest vibrational version of self, and you are able to create the pathways that you've already laid out for yourself. Okay, so the Reiki and the divine blueprint activation work very well together because they have the same foundation. But what I've found when I'm working with people, they don't understand, because I mustn't be explaining it better. This is like that activation is opening you up to have a direct connection with your higher self, right? And so then the messages that come through, when if you think about the activation you've had, things that come through, and it might be if you utilize a crystal on your heart space or here, that will be relative to how you can draw that frequency into the physical realm. Okay, so usually, like, if we've unblocked something in your blueprint, and I need to explain this as well. This is actually, let me go. I'm just going to do this. Does that make sense so far? Bullshit.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So why then, the question is, why haven't we been able to access our divine blueprint naturally in Earth realm? Like what's happened? Because if it's a natural process, then why haven't we been operating from this? And that is because of the installations and the programming and the conditioning that has kept us in a low vibrational state and created imprints in this blueprint that we've been operating from, which is the highest vibrational version of self that we were able to access. But because of the Earth's ascension, we are now able to open up to that quantum field and access that universal template, or that divine blueprint of ours. So it was through manipulation of energies and things like this that has kept us operating off this other blueprint. And because we've been operating off this blueprint for thousands of years and heaps of life cycles, we have like energetic imprints. So if you can imagine, like, that create like loops of energy. Okay, so we've been running around in circles, recycling past traumas and energies that have come from like other lifetimes. And you can't, because we're not educated about our energetic nature to start with, we don't inquire about that. But the way that I've found this is because when I've looked in people's blueprints, they have sometimes energies that are running all around in the void, and they don't know which energy center they're meant to be in, right? Which creates all sorts of health issues and imbalances in the physical realm. But when we put everything back in its place and recalibrate the energies in these templates and clear them out and actually start operating from that high vibrational version of self, things settle down and you end up rebalancing self if you assist in nurturing those energy centers and drawing down that higher vibrational energy that is now available to you. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
So I just want to make sure that I'm actually explaining it properly, because there's so much information, but it's actually really simple. If that makes sense. All right. So is there any questions about that?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Do you know you said about the higher light body? What happens if there's an entity or something in there? What causes that?
Yeah, so you can get entities and things like this. And so we just clear them out. The same way in, okay, so like if you notice an entity there, I tell you, there's been parasites. So I've found like parasites, entities, the imprints, those programming installations that, because we are all connected, right? We're like, all of us are connected through our heart portal, because this is like the life, that's the life portal. Without our heart, we don't exist. Without the core of any kind of organic structure where the life forms from, there's no existence of it. And so in our heart, that vibration of self, and the same as plants and animals and all other living things, we have that spark of life that comes here. And that's what resonates with each of us. But if we aren't coming from a heart-centered space, because we've been laid and stuff like this, we can't feel the connection as, you know, like in a natural way, because it's so laid. We've got to fight through the distortions. Now, when we look through the energy centers, so you can take yourself into your physical body and feel through those energy centers, or if you can at the same time go through and imagine your holographic self and move through each of those energy centers. And if it's not a bright light color, so these ones on that side are always like a bright light. That means they're activated. On this side, you'll notice the color, well, I notice the color of the energy centers that gets pushed through. And sometimes it has like a white light, which usually means there's divine coding in there, which is attached to the person's purpose here in Earth realm, because they've mastered something. So it's like a light code that they can draw down. Entities, when you're pushing through the energy, it'll get stuck. It can't move. You can't move the energy any further. So you have to stop and inquire. And I always say, okay, guys, there's something here. Can you show me what is it that I'm dealing with? And so depending on how your clair abilities work, you will sort of be given an interpretation of whatever's in there. And so if it's an entity, for me, they usually pop out as you will feel it. You will feel the heaviness of them. They will look not quite right. I've seen like robotic forms, galactic forms, rock formations. That was a weird one, but they're actually conscious things that are there. Little ninjas as well. All different types of entities. And when you blast these centers with that white light, what essentially happens is it pushes it out. And so if you notice something there, you're pushing the light in, then they have to eventually pop out. And so then they pop out, and you will sometimes, I've reached right in there and started pulling stuff out if I feel like it is. And I've also asked for assistance from the guides to crank up the light, and they will pump light into it as well. They can't exist in that high vibrational field, especially when it's focused on them. And so that's part of the divine blueprint activation, is to find these energies that are carrying a density and shift them. Because a lot of the time, because we are connected, it's not just impacting the person that has that entity or that installation or programming, it's affecting the whole collective. And so that's something else that came to light when I was finding installations and pulling out these installations that had literally been the cause of creating bypasses or detours for the collective. When I first started doing this, or a year into it, I actually found there was a lady had in the solar plexus, I think it was sacral, there was a detour because she had this installation, and what it was actually doing was creating a bypass, and which meant that the direct link through that channel into the heart space was being detoured. So it was blocking people, and this specific pathway was detouring to create confusion amongst like divine counterparts, soulmates, and things like this. And so people were attaching to somebody they would call a soulmate based off this distorted field of energy that was being created from this rerouting. And people weren't actually able to come into their heart space. Anyway, long story short, there is a whole different world that is available when we start playing in this realm. We can see the constructs, the installations, the programming, the entities, the parasites, all these different things that have come into play in the unseen realms that are actually affecting us energetically. And the powers that thought they were knew about all of these types of things. Well, not all of them, because they don't have access to these realms, but they knew about the energies and how energy comes through these different channels. They knew to a point, but they knew, more importantly, how to manipulate the energy in our reality to keep us in those energetic imprints that were in that blueprint and hold and suppress that frequency to a point where we didn't evolve until the Earth's ascension process and natural evolution has just overridden that anyway. And anybody that has their heart open will be naturally riding the wave of the ascension process. And anybody that is mindful about that connection in their heart and living from their heart space will be super sensitive to the core frequency of Earth and her ascension, and will be on the front line moving with the ascension process and be able to reflect the experiences that they're having. They will be able to understand them as a reflection of what is happening at a core frequency level for the Earth's ascension, if that makes sense, because the Earth, you are a living reflection of the Earth and the reality that you're experiencing, if that makes sense. So is there did that answer your question? I just want to round about that in a really big way.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
And is there any other questions?
I had one question pop to mind when you was talking about the different layers, so the physical layer and then the other layers, 4D, 5D and holographic. And I was thinking, if that connection is being made, do you know, like say like a download's happening, is it like, does it vary in ways in which it comes? Could it just be like instantly, or could it be like over time as well, or is it just constantly on?
Constant. Well, it depends on how clear your channels are. So when we have all those channels cleared, right, we end up embodying the truths of our divine blueprint, right? And so it becomes a lifestyle thing. So you're always switched on. You're always in the know. You always understand what your higher guidance is asking you to do and what your spiritual team are directing and supporting you with. You're never alone. Like, you just have all these different channels in your physical body connected with your highest vibrational version of self. So this is why I'm always saying,
How would they communicate? How would they communicate like this next level team we've got? Like, how would you come across like?
Okay, so making sure your heart center is clear and making sure your third eye is clear and making sure your crown is clear. And so they're the three centers that will assist you in hearing your guidance and knowing your guidance and knowing the difference between your guidance and your instincts versus just an impulsive thought, right? But your heart is actually going to assist you in like being able to feel what is what. And so there's a few elements of self. You've got the feel in here, you've got the knowing through your third eye, and then you've got that divine essence that cranks through your crown center that allows for you to elevate, and it kind of just amplifies every coding in you. So essentially it's these two, your third eye and your heart, when they're connected and activated and you're operating from, you get that amplification of the divine essence that allows you to understand it. So if you're struggling to hear your guidance, or if you want to really connect in, it's building the relationship through your heart and that heart portal and your third eye.
I think for me, it's like really being able to define the difference, or like me myself be like aware, of like the difference in guidance, instinct, intuition, thought, like, yeah. So
yeah.
But like sometimes when it just starts ringing randomly, do you know what I mean? It's like that is a good way to like. I do notice that these days. I'm like, oh, so what's happening? But then I'm like, but I'm not hearing like words or anything. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, Joe, here we are. Are you ready to launch?
Yeah, and that's the thing. So it's not that, and that's what I was saying. Depending on the Claire abilities, everybody will be able to. Your soul has mastered certain ways that you receive information energetically, and so that may not come through that thought field. It might come through a feeling. It might come through just that divine knowing. It might come through external forces sort of getting in your way and preventing you from being in spaces that may have caused you an issue, or if that makes sense. There's all different ways, and that's where like the exploration of self and our Claire abilities, which is another masterclass that is coming up, and identifying what those Claire abilities are, can assist us in putting words to what we're experiencing and understanding it as a superpower that your soul has mastered, essentially is bringing to the earth realm. Because we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. We don't go around and go, oh yeah, like I was listening to my guides the other day, and if you like the world has been built so that if we talk like that, people are like, you all right? Like you're all right? Like, unless you're talking to the right crew. But if you know that you have a Claire audience, or you have whatever Claire it is, there's so many of them, then you can have the conversation around it and talk about the feelings and the experiences that you're actually sensing. It becomes a lot easier. So anyway, going a little bit off track, but you're absolutely right. People have quite often said, and I know this feeling about, what is my instincts, what is my instinctual feel, and like what is like anxiety? What's the difference? And so building that relationship with your heart and being able to trust yourself to make decisions for the best interest of you and your loved ones is like the first gateway essentially into yourself. And I say you and your loved ones because when we are in the higher vibrational realms, we are thinking about the highest good of all. It's not about us. Every decision is made knowing the impact of our choices affects everything and everyone. And so when you can say to yourself, like, I can trust my choices and the choices that I make for myself and my loved ones, then why aren't you able to trust yourself then? Like, this is the thing. So if things do come up and you go, well, no, I can't trust myself because of blah, blah, then it's just showing you where you can potentially work on, because you've got a distortion or a block there. And I would be finding out what association that has in your energy centers, and just cranking the light onto it to push it out and dissolve it and understand it for what it is, so you can overcome it. I don't know if that helps.
Thank you.
So if I don't explain things properly, just tell me, because I'll go off track.
No, it makes sense, man. It makes sense. Okay. So what would you recommend for, like, how often would you, like, say you were to make sure them channels are clear?
I do it every day.
And what would you do? What do you do?
For me, sound frequencies work really well. So for other people, it might not be. That's why we need to explore what works for us. So sound frequencies, I use Jonathan Goldman's 7-minute tune-up in the morning. And we just go through different, it's like, and then you go, ooh, and then it's, so you're going through all these different ones, and you can do it driving in the car. It's really good having it loud. You can feel it vibrate through your body. But then some people maybe need to do things differently. But if you intentionally work on each of the centers And it doesn't need to be for like extended periods of time. Just need to set the intention and visualize, or sound blast it, or meditate, or whatever's going to assist you in being able to clear out those centers and bring them back into a state of balance. That's, and so that's why we have the soul food. And this is, I've spent so many years trying to figure out what works. And through working with my clients and understanding the energies in their body and all the different ways that their guidance actually says they can assist in drawing through those energies and supporting their energy centers, I've noticed that it's a very simple process. And that's how the information about like nature came through as well. So we look at nature and we go, oh, nature is great for grounding and stuff. But the truth about nature is that it's a divine energy that exists around all of us. And if we truly connect in, like talk to the plants, like fully, you know how you get people that are like, oh, hello, little plant. That sort of, when you connect in like that, you are connecting with that divine essence that we talked about at the start before, that resonance. And that is why nature, it's not just about grounding. She's been protecting us with her divine essence and that protective nature of hers by like essentially offering up that divine essence the whole of our life and waiting to be acknowledged. But you're only going to acknowledge it if you acknowledge it in yourself first. Then you recognize, you connect on that level because of that divine essence. And she's everywhere and she replenishes us. So anyway, sorry about that. A little bit of a, I can't remember what the question was. I think we're running.
Yeah, I like when you know. Let's go.
Sorry about that. Okay, I've totally got off track. So let's get back over here. We're going to go over here, coming back. Okay, I'm just going to turn this slide on.